Hello, everyone, and welcome to my kitchen. Hello, hello. I am excited to be cooking with you today, so I'll try not to bump the table, and hopefully we will get the lighting. Hopefully the lighting will be okay. So anyway, welcome. So big plans for today. I have set up for meat stock to do some fat, and I actually have some fun things that were in the fat. Meaning different kinds of fats. So we got to talk about that. I have a few different ferment options that are pretty quick. And then I also want to hear from you guys what your questions are. So if you want to get into the chat, you will type a comment and then I'll say you have to be logged in, but that's just a Google login. So you can just sign in with your Google account to YouTube. You don't have to create a separate YouTube account. The chat does show up along with the video that will stay posted on here, but those questions are helpful for me to know different techniques. I have a lot of techniques here in my kitchen because I have what I normally do or the different options. So hopefully, if you have a question about a technique that's something we don't even talk about, we could do that at the end or in the middle, because I do want to hopefully complete the meat stock before we are off camera, and that's going to take an hour and a half. So yes, that is my plan for today. So hello everyone and welcome. Hello. Okay, I'm going to turn my sound off so that I don't get any more notifications on my phone, and we'll get started. So quick little tour of what we're going to get started with, and then I'm hoping that this will be a great place for you guys to be to see. Yep, I think that'll work great. So I have a chicken. I have water heating already. So let's get started with meat stock. So what do we do for meat stock? First off, we need some filtered water. Not essential, especially because you are boiling the water. When you boil water, you evaporate the chlorine. However, many places like our water has chloramides in it as well, and chloramides do not evaporate. So I prefer to do a filter water. This is my filter. Hello, hello. Here's my filter right here. I just use a pure filter. It's, I think, 4 quarts. I probably should have changed the filter before this because this is starting to be a little slow. But I just fill it in the top and it filters down to the bottom, and then I can release it here. So this is how I do a lot of my water. I also have, sometimes I'll bring El Dorado water from the office, which I have for backup today in case we use water too fast, because I can't make you guys wait. So we want to be efficient. So I've got water boiling here, and I'll show you, I'll pull it out once we're getting ready. But why the water is boiling? So how do I make meat stock? Here's a really efficient way to kind of do the 3 pillars of GAPS. We're going to do the 3 pillars of GAPS in half an hour. Or an hour and a half, I mean, not half an hour, sorry. And an hour and a half. So you can render your fat, make a pot of meat stock, and put up 2 ferments in an hour and a half. That's totally doable when you are in your own kitchen. Hopefully I can be just as efficient here with you guys with the camera, because of course that's more difficult. So I am going to just pull this camera a bit closer without hopefully burning it. Okay, so let me know if you can't hear me, but I'm going to go ahead and get this chicken ready. So what do I do for my steps for meat stock? I put my filtered water in my pot. I fill it about halfway full. I'm using this pot. There's the size of it. This is it's probably going to be a bit big, so I probably won't have it as full as it could be. However, this is Colorado, and water evaporates very quickly, so I find that it's not a big deal. I'm going to have extra water boil off, so if I end up starting with a little bit extra water, I just kind of note that and let it boil down to make it the equivalent of as thick, because remember, we want to cover by an inch and a half of water at the most of the meat that we are putting in. So, okay, now I have a chicken. Lots of people ask me about getting chickens. This is the best chicken that I am finding right now for the price. I also will sometimes get the Mary's organic chickens. I don't know if this is backwards or not for you guys, but I sometimes will get the organic ones that are a few dollars more. They are definitely nicer, but as we will see with this one, and also why I bought this one, is in case the scum was a little bit more. That is how I tell the quality of my chicken meat. So If there is a lot of scum in that step of the process, which we will get to in about 15-20 minutes, if there's a lot of scum, then you are going to know that that chicken is not very good quality. There's either a lot of bacteria, it doesn't get bled well enough, it has poor food, just toxins. Toxins and waste is what that scum is. You don't have to skim the scum, by the way. If you missed it, your stock is still drinkable. It's just a little bit, it just makes it taste a little better, and it's a little bit cleaner, but still totally edible if you miss skimming your scum. So I'm going to cut this open. I usually do this in the sink and pull the stuff over here. I'm fairly new to this kitchen, so the sink is a little further away than I'm used to for stove, but we are going to figure this out. I'm going to actually cut it, I think, on this cutting board so you guys can see what I'm doing. And I think I'm going to close these. Yeah, that's a better lighting. Oh, much, much better. Okay, beautiful. All right, so I'm going to pull this out, and then we will get started. Before I get my hands messy, I like to get my pot set up. So I'm actually going to move my flame to over here. Oh, then you guys can't see. I'll move my flame to black here. And, whew, hot. We will get started. So get yourself all set up so it's very easy to just put the chicken in without having to wash your hands every 5 seconds. And we'll get started. So, just going to cut the bag open, which is apparently the most difficult part of today, and pull this out. Now I'm being very careful because a couple of these are going to be fermented, not cooked, so I don't want to drip on my vegetables. Here's the Gizzards bag we're going to do in a second here. Trash. And I'm just going to give this a bit of a rinse. I'm rinsing until all the little bit of pink colored liquid comes out. Just getting any extra bacteria off the top of it. Bacteria growth will have started. That's a normal part of the breakdown of any kind of meat after it's dyed. So that is fine. That will give you a little bit more time on your stock in terms of maybe days that it's good, as well as give you more histamines. Bacteria eating the food makes histamines. So if you have a little bit of a histamine tolerance issue, fresh things and rinsed meat are going to be much better for you. All right. The thing I did not do is get my really good and sharpened knife. So this is going to be a little bit painful to watch me cutting apart this chicken, but we are just going to do it anyway. All right, so how do I cut apart a chicken? You can start with the arms or the legs. I think I'm going to start with the legs, actually. So I go ahead and see how there's a membrane of skin here. So you do this safely, even if you're on YouTube. I'm just going to follow that membrane of skin around. Sorry, I can't do this the other way. Until I get this thigh almost completely off, right? And you see how that bone just popped out? Now, when I make chickens, when I raise chickens, do you see the joint cartilage actually pulled? This actually pulled off of the joint cartilage. That's not the best fed chicken. If you get a farm-raised chicken on food that is not soy or corn, you're not going to have that type of joint issue. That's the collagen's still okay, but definitely not as good. Wow, I'm so embarrassed about my knife right now. Okay, so we're going to cut that. So that joint just pops out. Usually the cartilage stays on. And then if you would really like to, you could cut the same kind of deal here at the thigh and the drumstick. There's a membrane right here, and we would do the same thing. Let's see if we can get the angle. Right, down here. Ugh, this angle is weird on this camera. Right down here, we could cut that off, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to put this in the water. Now, my water's not all the way boiling. It doesn't matter, right? Eventually, they all have to come to boiling at the same time. They won't get to boiling until the same time. So I start my water boiling to get the process going and then do this. I like to do 1/2 a chicken at a time. So now I'm going to go to the wing on this side. Same thing, I'm going to stretch it. So it's like the armpit. I'm going to stretch it here, cut it, hack it. Wow. There is a little bit of a ligament right here that I just cut through. Then that joint was able to pull back, and I'm able to fully pull the wing off. Hooray! Into the pot. I'm going to go with the other wing right now because that's what's presenting itself to me. I went from the top of the shoulder this time, which is fine, but as you see, you do actually cut into the breast a little bit. For my purposes of what I'm doing with this meat, that doesn't matter, but it is cleaner to go inside to the from the armpit. Pop that off. Notice I've not had to cut through any bones or break any bones because all of these bones have joints connecting them, so that makes it really easy. Okay, so I'm pulling that membrane back and just cutting with it. Cutting around, pop the hip out, get the thigh, and here we go. Thigh and drumstick. Of course, I'm leaving all the skin on because that's so good. Now I like to go, so this is the neck of the chicken is down here. Here's the back, and here's the breasts. I'm going to go ahead and cut this little bit of membrane here, a little bit of muscle fiber. And as you can see, that really opens this back up. Now I'm gonna keep cutting. Here I do cut a few ribs, but they're very thin and straight down so that the back is separating from here, okay? Then I'm going to flip it. And now I just have connective tissue and muscle tissue connecting that. So I just kind of work that off. Again, much easier with a better knife. And you have a back of your chicken. That goes in here. I like to pull that apart. It helps it fit better in the pot. Okay, last thing I do is I pull the skin off and I put this in the stock pot. I definitely want all this goodness. Now, there's two things that I can do with the breasts. I can leave them just like this or cut it straight in half, which I'm going to start doing. But I also could take the breasts away and save the breast meat for a different project or for a soup later, which is what I tend to do. Or I feed them to my dog. Breast tissue does not have a lot of nutritional healing properties. So it is not necessarily, it's not super necessary for your stock. Now, that being said, sometimes I don't want to eat the breast, or if I'm on intro, sorry, this thing falls down a lot, or if I'm on intro, and so I will use it to cook here, and then I'll throw it away often, or give it to my dog, because I get the nutrition out in the stock that's going to be there, but don't worry about all the fibrous muscle meat. It doesn't have a lot of nutrition, kind of probably already got it out when we do the stock. In case you're interested, this is where the chicken tender comes in. So here's the breast that was on top. Camera's up here. Here's the breast that was on top. Underneath, when you cut the whole thing off, there's this piece right here that separates out. And in the store, when you buy that, that's the chicken tender. And then this is the breast. So I am going to save the chicken tenders out because I love frying those up. They're so yummy. But I think for today, I'm going to put at least one breast in. I may save the other breast for my dog. I'm going to think about that. Okay, same thing. So what do I have here? Because here's the bone. There's a sternum right here, right in the middle, the breastbone. And I'm going to go just to the side of it, as close as I can be, just cutting that. Hopefully you can see okay. And then I'm just going to cut all the way through. So these bones, obviously, go in this pot. And then any kind of connective tissue. And then, again, here's that chicken tender I can separate off. I'm going to keep that for my lunch. And put the breast in. I have hamburger for him. I'm just going to go ahead and cook the breasts. Just kidding. I'm going to add him into the soup later. I'm going to keep that one out. Maybe the other one out too, if I can get it without burning myself. Let's see. Yep. All right. So I'm going to actually keep those out. I've decided. Again, I'm half and half. Half the time I do it, half the time I don't. Okay. Last thing we want to do is get the gizzards. So I pull them out of the bag. I love when they give me extra hearts. So rinse them off. And and bring them over. So I'm going to show you the different parts because not everyone knows what these are. That was just a little piece of liver. So here's the chicken neck. That one's, you guys probably know. This one is called a gizzard. And let's see, this is probably 2 parts and not a whole part of a gizzard. But here is the gizzard. So the gizzard is the stomach. And what happens is there's a little membrane in here that the chickens eat little rocks and stones in. And then this is completely like, it's a sack that you cut open. And then you pull this membrane off and rinse this off. And so this is a really nice place. I love gizzards. This is a yummy, yummy meat because it's a muscle that works a lot, right? Muscles that work a lot do really well for eating. Okay, and then here is a liver. Chicken livers. There's 2 things. Sometimes I put them in my stock. Sometimes I make them make pate out of them. This one's a little bit yellow to my liking. I think I'm going to actually keep that out. I don't, usually they're very red. I'm not sure why it's quite so, I don't know if you can tell that it's kind of mottled in yellow. So I'm not a huge fan of that. So I'm not going to put that in my stock. I may decide to make a pate with it later, or I might just throw it away because that's not my favorite liver. Here's hearts. Obviously, chickens don't have 2 hearts, and these are very different sizes, but chicken hearts are so good. If you guys have done classes with me before, you know that chicken heart is my reward for deboning the chicken, which is annoying and takes some time, but we'll do it because we'll do it anyway. So I'll do it with you guys later. But as I'm deboning the chicken, when I find that heart, I just pop it in my mouth because I love it. So delicious. All right, let's get rid of our trash. Going to clean up the sink a bit. We have lots of other things to do with it. And we'll go forward. So I'm not going to do any special cooking show things because I want to cook in the kitchen with you, not so that it can look like this in your house, not the other way around. So this towel, as you have probably noticed, I've not been using soap. So I will kind of think of this towel as my meat towel through this process. And we'll wash it afterwards in case anyone is freaking out about it. However, remember, it's the train that matters, not the germs. We have germs around us all the time, and we are not dying. It is okay to, just friction takes a lot of stuff off your hands. I will, however, wash with soap before I start ferments and make sure I use different cutting boards and all that kind of thing because I don't want to put something that's going to be eaten raw and fermented and left on the counter to introduce bacteria. I mean, that's just asking for trouble. So I'm not going to do that. All right, I'm going to pull a bowl for my meat that I'm going to set aside here. And these chicken tenders or the breast is a really nice thing. I will often fry them in butter, depending on our timing. I might do that while we're on camera. But just so you know, at home, because the stock takes a while, you may have other soup plans, which will take another half hour. So we're 2.5 hours in. You could fry some breasts up while you're waiting for that meal and then have this for dinner, right? So it's good ways to do that. Yuck. All right. Gonna wash this quick. I'm a huge fan of washing and keeping stuff clean as you go. 1, it doesn't pile up. 2, so you don't get overwhelmed at the end. So you're going to be tired when you're done cooking. So you might as well get it clean now. And it's so much easier to get it fresh, especially when it's raw meat, because otherwise you're putting more and more things on it, then all those dishes have raw meat on them instead of just the one thing that you could have done right away. So huge fan of cleaning up as we go. And it just takes a minute, even as well as I'm washing that one. Okay. Different towel, right? We are to different level of stuff. Ugh, chicken juice. And on the floor, I'm done with raw chicken now, so I'm actually just going to put this on the floor to deal with my drips and move on. Okay, while this is going, I'm going to put a lid on it. While this is boiling, bringing to a boil, I'm going to cut my aromatics. Aromatics are things like carrots, onions, garlic, any vegetable really that you want to put in, celery perhaps. So let's go ahead and do that. So I have recently been doing a lot of carrots instead of just the 2 I used to do. And man, is your stock better when you put flavor in it. So that is what I've been doing. So I'm going to go ahead and cut just the tips off. I washed these earlier just with my hands, mostly because they're old and growing hairs. So I wanted to get that a little more sightly. I have my compost bucket back there. And I'm just going to cut the tops and the bottoms off. I did not peel these. They are organic. And you don't have to even cut the tops and the bottoms off. But I like mushy carrots, and I don't like eating the mushy carrots with the piece on them. So I like to cut those off so I can eat whatever is there. Okay, 1 second. I'm going to bring you a little closer. See if this works. Okay. Perfect. Nope, then you can't see. All right, sorry, bear with me here. Okay. 2 ways to cut carrots. If you are like me and you like to eat them, you can cut them in more bite-sized pieces. Guys, a good knife is really important. I can't believe I didn't fix that. Okay. I'm just going to pile these up here. Then we'll go to the onions. I don't put my aromatics in until my stock has come to a boil and I've skimmed the scum, because it's really annoying to skim scum around carrot pieces because they float, and onion pieces especially. Ugh, so annoying. So that's just my rhythm. If you are a person who tends to forget about your stock and never skim the scum, you might as well just put them all in at once. But I generally find by the time the water's heated, I turned it on 5 minutes before we came live. So by the time the water's heated, I am ready to cut up my chicken, or my chicken's in. It's almost to a boil, and then my vegetables I cut up in the meantime. So for stock, I start boiling the water, and then I prepare things in order, and it really works very well. Nope, not big enough. Try again. Now that I do more carrots, I forget I have to do a plate because there's not room to cut the onion. When you only do 2, there's room to cut both. All right, I'm going to put in about half an onion probably. A little bit of a sad onion. Okay. Now I'm doing a chicken soup because they're easy, and that's what I like the most. However, you can do this with other cuts of meat. So some options, and I have some blogs on my website about Say No to Bone Broth, I think is the one that has the different cuts of meat that you can use, like short ribs and stew meat, or bone-in pork chops, or lamb shanks, which I also have, but not going to make soup out of today. Okay. Oh, yeah, that's like, what's wrong with this onion? It's orange because of the carrot. Great. All right. Again, 2 ways to do onions. I'm going to leave these fairly big because I want to pull them out. I don't eat the mushy onions. I'll pull them out when I debone the meat and throw them away. So I'm going to do some amount of onion cutting. Do about half an onion. I just cut it roughly. Hopefully you could tell how I chopped it. And that's going to be it. Save this for something else. Okay, so now I am going to put a little garlic in here. You can do other aromatics. So, hold on. So loud. So, on the 28th, I just added a class that's a teaching, like I'm going to use a PowerPoint, but it's a class on how to make soup without a recipe. And I know you guys know how to do this, but it's really about what flavor profile do I want? Because it can get really boring on GAPS. It can get really boring to eat the same kind of soup that you already make. Even your favorite ones can get really old. Onion juice, it's my favorite. Okay. So, I'm just going to peel some garlic. So, I don't always put garlic in. Sometimes I just do meat. Sometimes I don't do onions because dogs don't. It's not good for dogs to really eat onions, so I often will avoid onions for things that my plan is to give my dog the breast meat, for example. So there's lots and lots of things you can do, but my default is half an onion or a whole onion and 2 carrots. And that makes for a fine stock, but it tastes exactly the same. And so whatever stock you're doing, I would encourage you to do a different kind of stock at other times. Starting to get bubbles on that. We are getting there. Okay, so I'm going to peel these cloves, and I'm probably just going to cut them in half. And I'm going to wash my board so I don't have to have onion anymore. These I'm all going to put all in together. And go from there. That's going to be a problem. There's an automatic vent that goes off. Okay, people who are on live, can you still hear me talking? Or is this going to be a problem? Do I need to move the computer away? Let me know in the comments, please, if you could still hear me. Maybe you can't even hear me to ask. That's a problem. Okay. Okay, perfect. Glad you can hear me. Perfect. Okay, so I am going to, we'll come over here because that's going to annoy me for a minute. Okay, so while that finishes boiling, I want to show you, I'm not going to show you my fridge. I was working on it, but I'll show you things in my fridge. So here is a lamb shank that I got from Butcher. Nope, you can't see that. Hold on. Here's a lamb shank. This is going to be, it's the bone from the kind of shoulder, well, below, like the forearm. And this I will sometimes crock pot. It also works really well for a stock. So that's a really nice one. What else do I got? I also have a pork chop, a bone-in pork chop. You guys know what these looks like, but the pork chops come from the spine. It's this part of the animal, so these bone-in actually have connective tissue in them, so that's a really nice option too. I just found that in my fridge, so now I know it's there, so hooray. Oh look, now I get to see who everybody is that's on. You guys all said you could hear me. Hooray. Good. All right, let's see how our stock is coming. Ooh, we're getting bubbles. All right, so here is what it looks like when it starts to foam. That is called scum. Scum is fine. Again, it's impurities. You want to look for the scum. Sorry, brought home my scum skimmer, and I'm trying to remember where I put it. Right here. Okay, this is a scum skimmer. So you want to get the scum out. Ooh, look at this. It's going perfect now. Let me grab a bowl. I skim my scum into a bowl, and my dog likes it. Again, these aren't toxins. These aren't things like, oh my goodness, what's happening? You know, there's poison. It's not poison, right? They're just impurities. So, let me see. Oh, thank goodness. It's turned off. Okay, so here is that scum. This one, see how it's kind of brown? And it's a bit foamy, but it gathers well. It's not too much. There's really not very much here at all. And it's gathering well. I'm going to turn it down just a bit. I kind of want to stir and make sure if there's any scum kind of in it that we can get that to the top and scum it out. But really, that was hardly any. So that was a really nice scum. So again, I buy chickens if I go to a new store or see a new brand. I will buy that chicken if it's not total crap and see what it's like. because when I make stock, I know the quality of the chicken. You can't pull a marketing scheme off on me because depending on how much scum that is and also how it's handled. So there are some organic Costco chickens. I stopped buying them because even though they're organic and they're good quality, I don't know if there's their storing practices or they did bleed them well enough because you can tell the meat is kind of reddish if it's not being bled properly. So I don't know. I don't know why, but I got so many Costco chickens I had to throw away because the scum. And right now, this smells like chicken. It doesn't smell like sulfur. It doesn't smell like puke or anything like that. It just smells like chicken. It's a really nice smell. So I know from the smell and I know from the scum the quality of the chicken. So that's a great way to do that. And then you also can, if you have stock that's been in the fridge a little while, or if you have, you can leave your stock out as long as you reboil it. I say every 12 hours. It's really okay for every 24 hours, even with meat in it. As long as you boil it every 24 hours at the most long, you're going to re-kill that bacteria. But here's how you can tell. If you boil that stock and it smells bad or the scum just keeps coming and it smells like bad chicken, then it's bad. You got to throw that away. So doing the scum and checking it, finding it, catching it at the scum stage is really important. Okay, so as you can see with this, I have the chicken pieces, and if I kind of push them down, they're covered by a bit of water, right? So I'm well filling this pot with meat, and then there's some water. So that was actually a perfect guess of water for this pot. And then I'm going to put in my carrots and onions. This is a lot, right? But I wanted something more flavorful without having to remake a soup from it. So this will be a really nice soup. So I'm going to put all of that in there. And do you see how annoying that would be to skim scum with all of those things? Because they all float right now. So I definitely recommend putting them in after you skim your scum. All right, so I'm just going to do that. Now finding the perfect simmer is a bit of a trouble. So I'm going to put the lid on. This is a really tight lid too, so this could give us a bit of trouble. There is a little air release here, but when you put the lid on, it traps the heat, right? So there's so much less heat that you need when you have a lid on. So I'm going to put this, I'm going to leave it in the front actually, because if I put it in the back, that fan will turn back on. Seems like it's good for you guys, but I'm going to lose my voice if I try to talk over it. So, yep, so we're going to do that. Oh, peppercorns, I forgot. Peppercorns are great to put in no matter what stage of GAPS you are on or not on, of course. Peppercorns are helpful. I'm going to put in that many, like 8 or 10, something like that. I like to do them whole and not crush them up because you'll get the flavor without any other problems. You could put a couple of bay leaves in here. Even if you're on stage 1, bay leaves are okay because you can pull them out. So what we don't want to do on stage 1, 2, and 3, if you happen to be on GAPS, is to eat dried herbs that are still in there. But you can do fresh herbs and you can do like bay leaves because you can pull those out. I have some parsley that I'm going to put in. It's a little wilted, but some parsley I'm going to put in. But this is great to put in for the last 10 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes. So I'm actually going to wait to put that in until we are almost done. So here's my lovely stock. Now salt. What do we do about salt? If you look at broth or stock recipes from a chef's standpoint, you want to have this as blank as possible. Because if you're doing a soup from this and say you even fried vegetables, like doing my chicken tortilla soup, you're going to fry the vegetables separately in some fat, you're going to salt those. So you could end up way too salty without a choice if you put salt in the stock right now. However, if you are going to plan to just eat this as a chicken soup, then you could choose to put salt in right now, or you could choose to put it in later. I think I'm going to put a little bit of salt in because it does draw the flavors out a bit. And I don't plan to put this in. I don't plan to probably make a different soup with it. So I'm going to put in half a teaspoon, maybe a teaspoon of salt for that whole pot. It's just really not a lot for what is here. Do you add apple cider vinegar? Thank you. That's a great question. So to stock, we do not add apple cider vinegar. To bone broth, you do. So what apple cider vinegar does and how you would make bone broth with this would be if you have bone broth, you're going to actually put the water and the bones and the apple cider vinegar in for a while, half an hour or so, before you even bring it up to heat, because the acidity will start leaching the minerals out of the bones, which is what you want. For meat stock, there's two reasons we don't add it. One, we don't really have access to a ton of bone. If you think about the cuts I put in, there's not a ton of bone in there. The other thing would be that apple cider vinegar in general, can potentially be a histamine increasing food, which again, just even if you're not sensitive, histamine is something our body has to break down. So if we put extra in, it's not necessary, and it could potentially make it a little bit more difficult. So bone broth, yes, definitely apple cider vinegar. Meat stock, no apple cider vinegar needed, and again, not helpful, so I don't recommend it. Great question. Okay, finding the simmer. I'm going to check this here quickly every few minutes, because I want it to be still with a little bit of bubbling on top and moving underneath, because that moving, simmering action is what's going to pull the different amino acids out of the meat, and the collagen and vitamin C and other nutrients out of the joints. So it actually is really pretty right now. This is perfect. I'm going to do it to you because we've got it. So do you see how we've got some bubbles popping at the top? But it's not really, it's not rolling, but it's not still. You don't want it to be still. So I'm going to show you that. That's not going to be, that was just perfect right now. It's going to take some adjustment of my temperature to keep it that way, because I can hear it's actually increasing in intensity right now. So I'm just going to make sure that doesn't. You do want to err maybe a little on the side of vigorous simmer as opposed to slow simmer, unless you want to simmer it for a really long time. So the slower the simmer is, the longer that's going to take to cook, and it may take you much, much longer. All right, perfect, great. Let's see. Trying to think of positioning. I think with this simmering slow enough, I'm going to try to move it back, because otherwise you guys won't be able to see what I'm doing next, which is, ooh, almost spilled that, which is fat. We're going to render fat today. I'm so excited. All right, let me get my space cleaned up for a moment. And we will get started. This plate just had vegetables, so I'm going to keep it for other vegetable potentials. All righty. And then get this cleaned off. Anyone else absolutely hate garlic paper on their hands? So annoying. Okay. The other thing we have to cook today, so I'm going to do it next, is fat. Pull my fat out here. Store it in the off oven. Okay, I started cutting this up, and I was going to cut some with you and just have most of it already done. But then I saw that I have some leaf fat. So I want to show you what the leaf fat is, because it's so exciting. So someone just the other day was like, what do you think about suet? So leaf fat is what you make suet out of. So there's two types of fat on an animal. One is skin fat, the layer underneath the skin, and the other one is going to be suet, or leaf lard. So this little pot contains the leaf lard, and the other one contains the skin fat. So I want to show you the difference between the two of them. The big pot right here has skin fat. This one has leaf lard. So first I'm going to show you the leaf lard. First I'm going to show you the skin fat. Okay, so this is fat cut from the skin. So the skin was here, and then this is the muscle layer. The muscle's not, it will just get in the way of your lard, but it's not a problem. So I will kind of trim this off a little bit, but it's not like I have pieces in here that have a little bit of muscle in them, just a tiny shred, and that's totally fine. Where do I source my fat from? A lot of butchers have it. So this fat is from a cow that I think my parents split with people. Oftentimes people who get that don't quite know what to do with the fat. This is cow fat, by the way. There's also a company called Field to Front Door that's here in northern Colorado, and they are great about, they have fat, they have liver, they have bones, they have short ribs. We hopefully will start carrying some short ribs in Be Well Clinic because they don't have a lot of demand for them. And I was like, are you kidding? Short ribs are the best for stock. So hopefully we'll have some beef short ribs. So we carry some of Field to Front Door's things in our, like we carry those weird foods at Field to Front Door. But there also is, you can order from their website. So fieldtofrontdoor.com or something like that. They do parts of cows, I think 1/8 or 1/16, maybe 1/32. I can't remember how small their packages go. You could split it with a friend. They do have a farm in Berthoud, or you can, get some different stuff from us. Fat is $3 a pound is what we sell it for. So it's really, really cheap to get. Okay, so this guy was a little bit bruised. You can see that fat's kind of pink. It's it got a little blood in it probably. I may cut that off because that's not quite as desirable. This is going to be a much nicer amount of fat here, or type of fat. It's just really nice. And then if you see, there's layers to this. So if I pull this apart, didn't think I'd be able to do that, right? If I pull this apart, see there's like very striation layers of these fat layers that are separated by a bit of a membrane. It's not a problem membrane. So there's that. So I'm going to cut this in just cubes. Okay, I'm going to cube it like I have here. Fat is also really helpful to have a sharp knife with, but here we are. I'm sorry you can't go out right now. I hear you want to go out. All right, so I'm going to cut these into cubes, just at basically the same size. So what we're left with, I forgot to cut the meat off. What we're left with, do you want this? Is some, when we're done rendering the fat, is some cracklings. Cracklings are fatty pieces of the collagenous part of the pieces of this. And they are going to be really delicious, kind of used as bacon bits, if you will. So I put them in my soup sometimes just for some added pieces of fat. I will just fry them, like reheat them and put them with salt, or just eat them as a snack. So that's really good to do. Okay. All right, lost our flame there. But the house didn't explode, so congratulations us. We're not gonna die. All right, oops, wrong one. So I'm gonna do all these different pieces here. And then I will cut this off. I don't want that. I'm not going to ruin my beautiful tallow with some inferior fat. Okay, so quickly doing this. Now, before that you guys came on, it took me maybe 10 minutes to cut up this pot of fat. There we go. So now I'm going to turn it on low heat. And let it start melting. So think making bacon grease, right? We're just eking the meat or the fat and liquefying it out. So we will work on that. Now, you guys remember what that leaf or the skin fat looked like? This is what leaf lard looks like. It has it's still in some ways striated. Let's see. Still in some ways striated. But do you see how this is crumbly, almost chalk appearance to it? Can you guys tell that on the camera? I hope so. So this is a very different feel, and it has also pieces that look like it just has this very crumbly. Do you see how different that is from what that looks like? It's a very, very different type of fat. So this fat is from the innards. It has these kind of round, globby pieces. Like that's a really good look of what leaf lard looks like. So when you find lard or fat pieces that look like that, render them separately if you want to. You don't have to. It's totally fine to mix them. But here's the deal. This fat is much more tasteless than the tallow fat. And this is what, leaf fat is what you would bake pies out of. If you were baking in the olden days before they recommended Crisco as an alternative. It's not really tallow or even lard, straight lard, skin lard, that you would bake your pies out of. You would actually save this very special fat, also called suet, for that. This is a drained vein, it looks like. That goes in the dog eat pile. So same thing with this leaf lard. It's going to melt a lot faster as well. Yeah, do you see how the texture of that fat? It's almost like a candle. It's almost like candle wax. So it's going to create a very, very different type of fat. And you can get, I don't know how many of you guys know, I have a YouTube channel I watch called 18th Century Cooking. I love John Townsend and Sons. They are quite fun to watch. John Townsend is a reenactment actor in some state back east. I can't remember. And they do a lot of videos and a lot of cooking videos. So he cooks from old cookbooks with very confusing directions because we don't understand a lot of the wordage. Even the lettering is different, right? Their S's look like F's to us. That's skin fat. So yeah, John Townsend and Sons. So they talk about using suet in a few different things. See how that, I mean, this just tears apart. I'm doing this obviously with my hand. So suet is rendered beef fat from the leaf fat. And it's a very different thing. Here's a membrane. Those are just annoying, so you can pull that out. That heat's way too high. I consider fat fairly clean. I mean, it is still from a raw animal, but bacteria can't really live in fat, so I'm not maybe as careful with that as I am with other things. So I did not burn it. I was really close. You don't want this to brown. As loud as that got, I was just focusing on talking over it and not paying attention to it. It's okay. You're going to get a little browning, but you don't want the fat to be brown. And so I'm just checking to see. Let me see if I can have you guys see. So you see that liquid in there? It's pretty clear. It gets a little color, but it's pretty clear. So even though there's a little browning, the meat got browned because the meat's going to do that. But that's there. So now we're going to keep this on low heat and just let the fat kind of liquefy out of that. Wow, I'm going to have to clean this. So anyway, I don't stress too much about fat. For example, fat itself is not bad. So when I'm messing with fat like this, I'm going to rub it into my hands, which makes my hands oh so soft. Look at that. But I am going to wash my hands, before I move on. But there's not bacteria that's really growing in here. Am I going to eat pieces of raw fat? Probably not, but it's really not too big a deal. So just going to break this fat up. Again, you could totally do this with a knife, but I just got halfway through, so I'm just going to finish what I'm doing. Here's another vein or piece of muscle maybe that is in here. Connective muscle, it looks like. Again, those muscle pieces. Oh, and some skin fat somehow made it in here. So those muscle pieces are just going to liquefy different, or they're not going to liquefy. So you're just going to pull them out later. So again, you don't have to clean up your fat very much because the parts you don't need will come out, but it can be easier to do some cleaning up in the meantime. I know I'm going to pull this membrane out, so since I separated it anyway, I might as well pull it out now, kind of thing. Okay. There we go. I'm going to put this on really low heat because if I burn my leaf lard, I cry because it's so special. I did not specifically get a package of leaf lard. It just happened to be in this. And I find that a lot. A lot of butchers don't go through the work of separating. They don't have a different demand for fat anyway, let alone the different types of fat, because it's just not where our country eats. It's not the way our country eats here. So bonus for us is that you often will get some leaf fat in your package of fat, and then you can just render that separate and use it for things like pie crusts. I wish you guys could feel this. I mean, it feels like a pie crust. It feels like Crisco. It's such a different feel than the other stuff, and it's not even rendered. Okay, I think that's about as broken up as it needs to be. You also have much, much less. I got some skin pieces in here. I didn't notice right away that it was leaf fat when I was cutting it up. So, okay, I think I got them all. This is going to leave a lot less cracklings. It's almost all completely just fat, as opposed to these are going to have little crackling leftover pieces. Oh, man. Good. Moisturizer. Some people absolutely hate having fat on their hands and working further. So I get that. I'm actually going to take a little bit of this off with some soap, but not from the back of my hand. I like a moisturized hand. It's nice. Sometimes you just need a cloth to take it off. Okay. Now I'm going to get both these going, and then we are going to cut some ferments up. That's what they're called. We'll do that next. Where'd my lid go? Okay, so we are 51 minutes in. We have a stock. Oh, that was a good guess. We have a stock that is simmering. It's been simmering for about, 30 minutes? And maybe a little less. And we have lard, leaf fat, and tallow cut up. And making allowances for the fact that I'm going slower because I'm talking to you. And it would have taken you a little longer to cut up the fat because I did some of that off camera. I think we're pretty even in our timing right now. All right. Get those as low heat as possible. Actually, I'm not putting the lid on the leaf fat because that's a really great way to burn your fat, is by not paying attention to how it is. I turned the wrong one off. Okay, so I'm going to reset again, get cleaned up. Again, we don't have to have a huge amount of counter space. We can definitely just work with what we have, which is great. Okay, anyone want to type any questions up while I clean this up? Questions about meat stock, about fat, how to use them, why you want them, anything like that? No questions. If you get it from pig fat, it's called lard. And if you render it from any other animal, pretty much, it's called tallow. So you can render lamb fat. It's very smelly. I've tried it. I just can't. I can't do it. So I don't know what I'm going to do with all my lamb fat that I froze from this last year's butchering. But I feel like it would be okay. I love lamb fat. I feel like it would be okay to even put in some venison maybe to make it because it's gamey. Both are gamey. So you're already looking for that taste. I don't use venison or elk fat because a lot of the hormones and odor, if you will, so kind of what makes the animal essential, is in the fat. So if you cut, for example, if you know hunters or are a hunter, if you cut the fat out of your venison and really make it pretty lean, you're going to have a much milder taste than if you leave it in. Okay, there's a question. Awesome. Do you have to make your stock in a pot? No, you don't. You may not use Instapots to make meat stock because an Instapot will push, it's high heat and high pressure, and that denatures the proteins, and the point of meat stock is to have healing amino acids and other substances. So no Instapot. However, you can use the crock pot setting on your Instapot, and you can use a crock pot. So you can definitely use a crock pot. I've done that before. I prefer this, and it only takes an hour and a half when you're doing chicken. If I do beef stock, I often will put it in a crock pot because that's just 4 or 5 hours. I don't usually stay home for 4 or 5 hours awake, so that's a bit of a problem for me. However, you miss skimming the scum when you're in a crock pot, and that does change the flavor a little bit. Again, totally fine, but changes the flavor. So some people I know, especially busy mamas, will go to that first 20, 25 minutes to a boil, skim the scum, and then they pour it into their crock pot. And then let it slow cook for a couple hours. You also change your timing just a little bit if you are doing it in a crock pot, because it does take a little longer depending on the settings of your crock pot. It's all about heat. You can also do a Dutch oven, which is really nice. In the oven, you could do that on the campfire, right? So a Dutch oven is a fun way to do it. Stovetop, in the oven, or campfire. You can move that all around. So Dutch ovens are pretty cool. I have one, a cast iron one. I need to bring in and scrub off because it's camping. It's a camping cast iron, so it's a bit messy, but I want to start practicing it and doing even sourdough bread. People do all sorts of things in it, which is really fun. All right. How do you use meat fat? Let me come back to that in just a second. Let me finish the stock ones. What if you don't, and feel free to give each other suggestions from what you do too. What if you don't cut up the chicken and put it in the whole thing? So the more joints you expose, the better and richer your stock is going to be. So have I made meat stock with whole chicken? Occasionally, but I really try to get it cut up, at least getting those, again, it only takes 5 minutes once you're good at it, and it is well worth the benefit. So you can, but it's not going to be as good. Now, there's oftentimes, I only recently in the last year or so have been cutting the back in half and all of that stuff. I used to just do arms, legs, wings, drumsticks, wings, thighs, and put the rest in. So that is a lot quicker. You don't have to cut up quite as much as I did. Beef fat in the freezer. Oh, definitely fine. It'll smell like plastic if it's gone bad. So if it's a very plasticky smell when you thaw it out, but this stuff is probably at least a year old. That would be my guess. So fat keeps a long time. No Instapot, maybe a crock pot, right? And you can do a crock pot you can do the Instapot crock pot setting as well. Okay, how do I use meat fat? So meat fat I use in just about everything. You want to be eating a lot of fat. I recommend about half a cup or more of added animal fat for any person over 2 years old. We have an incredibly stressful and demanding world, and we need fat-soluble vitamins to deal with that world. So if you are eating, right now, I am eating probably a cup to a cup and a half of fat a day would be my guess. Sour cream helps a lot with that, but it is so important. So if you look, I'll tour you. Where did I put it? I moved it because camera, but this is lard that I've made. Here you go. So I have a quart of lard. I opened this a week and a half ago, maybe two. It sits here. I also use butter more, and I'm halfway done with this, over halfway done with that pint. So I just leave my lard out. I keep a spoon in it, and I don't double dip, so I can leave it out on the counter. It's not going to go bad. Stir our stuff, shall we? How are we doing down there? Very low heat, so it's going really slow. Check our stock. A little bit of movement. That might be a little fast, but I'm going to allow it at the moment. Okay, so what do? I cook eggs with it. Oh, here's my butter. So my fat is all very easily accessible. I use Kerrygold, cut them in half and put them on there. And then I will show you a portion of my fridge. So here is, oh, you can't even see. There are 3 tubs of sour cream. That's because I ate the 4th one already, and I went shopping on Thursday. So I eat a lot of sour cream. Okay, how do I use my meat fat? So I will roast vegetables in it. That is my absolute favorite way to eat meat fat. I will I have a creamy cauliflower soup recipe that you roast cauliflower pieces, zucchini pieces, garlic still in their papers, but it's broken apart. And I think that's it. I put 4, 5, 6 tablespoons of usually lard, but you could totally do tallow in that and kind of coat them. Put it in the oven for a few minutes, let it melt, and then pull it out and coat them. put it back in and roast it for like an hour or bake it well for an hour. It absorbs all of that. All that vegetable absorbs that. I'll fry steaks in fat, lard, tallow, any meat that I'm frying. Eggs, I do tons of fat in it. And then you can also put it in your soups just directly, or in your different mugs. So let's say you just get a bowl of soup or a mug of soup or stock. Just pull out some lard, maybe a tablespoon or a teaspoon, depending on how much your body wants and how much you're used to and can handle. Put it in there and just melt it in with the hot soup. So you're getting it that way. You can also make fat bombs. I know people who are dairy-free, especially kids, don't mind. Adults, I think we have a mental thing, but I've had people do fat bombs, which are lard and a little bit of honey. They fridge or freezer them, and then just pop them when they need a little bit extra boost. I know kids who eat lard by the spoonful because it's good for you. They need more fat, and that's how they do it. That's okay. Nope. I love the questions and the interaction. So nutrition value in the lard and tallow. There is a lot of fat-soluble vitamins. A, D, K2 often if it's grass-fed, and I'm missing one. Anyway, so fat-soluble vitamins. In some lard or in some fats, there's going to be something called Activator X. That is what Weston A. Price named and discovered. I think it's the same as K2. I always get this confused. Bees are not really fat soluble. So I don't know that there's a significant amount of bees in it. Anyway, so without A and D, you can't utilize omega acids, omega-3, omega-6. So you have to have A and D for your omega-6 and 3s to be utilized. So it's great for anti-inflammatory. It's great for, what else? Anti-inflammatory, just calming, healing, immune support, hormones, hormone balancing for the body to make the right hormones. It's also, yeah, we know what omegas do. They help with inflammation. And yeah, F, there's going to be some F in it. Linoleic acid is what vitamin F is. So there'll be some F in there. I wonder if there's vitamin C, but I wonder if it gets cooked out in this type of processing. So vitamin C is present in connecting collagenous tissue. Any kind of connective tissue is going to have some vitamin C, but it is heat sensitive, so I'm not sure if it's going to survive a rendering process. It's called rendering. Rendering out the liquefied fat. Okay, great question. Did I answer your question? Also, we need fat for, so because we use it for the immune system and to make hormones, it will help with stress tolerance. So fat will really help with stress tolerance, which is why I'm eating so much right now. Even though I'm not stressed out, there are a lot of changes that we are having to respond to. So stress isn't stressed out or I need to be better or I'm overwhelmed. Stress just means that our body is undergoing need for extra work. So stress comes when it's too cold outside. You really should increase your fat intake when it's too cold. Stress comes if your immune system is working hard at something. It's good to increase your fat then. And stress comes if there's a lot of changes, decision making, all of that kind of thing. Anyone over 2, I recommend to have at least half a cup of added animal fat. I find kids eat it more readily. I don't make them, right? But I have parents say, cut a bowl of butter cubes in your fridge, and that's always a yes to that snack because you're not going to overeat fat. There's nothing in it. You're not eating sugar. You're not eating donuts. You're going to get nauseous if your body doesn't want it. So the nutrition in fat, if you're eating it, and kids are usually better at this than adults because they're not afraid of fat yet, they will eat it when they want it. So I say shoot for that half a cup. Really, adults should probably be closer to a cup, but that's pretty overwhelming for a lot of people. So we start with at least half a cup. And really, if you look at it, that's 2 tablespoons with every meal. And then a couple fatty snacks. And your kid will grow well and they will be satisfied and they will stop asking for treats in between meals. They will sleep better. It's really amazing. Kids need a higher percentage of fat and fat-soluble vitamins as well as protein than adults do because they are growing, they are building so much faster than adults do. Adults are just healing, right? that takes energy too, but the kids do it a lot. They're building their body to double their height in however many years. It's pretty crazy. Okay. Shall we go to ferments? Yes? All right. I am going to do 2 ferments for us today. The first one is going to be beet kvass. Hold on. I think I'm allergic to being on camera. My nose always starts getting like red, and then I start touching it. I think that the camera just makes it red, and then I think there's something wrong, and then here we are. Okay. 2 ferments that I want to do today. First is beet kvass. So I dumped an old ferment that I needed to dump in my fridge, and I have a half-gallon jar. So your things you're going to need for this are half-gallon jar. We're going to have water to the shoulder, so get your filtered water going. Mine's pretty good. And then we're going to have some salt and a lid. That's it. Salt, water, beets, and a lid. Oh, Nathan, great question. It is good to rotate sources, but it's okay if you have a primary one or you only get other ones sometimes. So I do eat mostly butter, and I eat lard the second most, and I eat egg yolks. Runny egg yolks are also a source of cholesterol, and sour cream obviously is a huge source for me. They're all going to have different profiles of the vitamins. For example, pastured pork, that lard is going to have huge amounts of vitamin D, whereas beef fat, I think, is much higher in A. Weston A. Price has an analysis. If you go to westonaprice.org, Weston A. Price Foundation, you might have to Google it. But they do have some analyses of the different fats. What is lard versus tallow? So if you know you're deficient in a certain fat-soluble vitamin, then you would want to eat more of the fats that have more of it, right? Otherwise, if we're not worrying about it, and the best way to eat is just variety, and moderation is really helpful. Because if we can have a variety of foods in our diet, then we're much more likely to be getting everything we need, as opposed to not. Mono diets can tend to be very deficient in a couple things and over-sufficient in some things. Okay. Forgot what I was getting. Oh, a lid. All right, so you want to get a good canning lid. I reuse these until they are bad. This one has no rust or anything on that. Once it gets rusty, then I throw this part away. And then a lid. So we do want a tight seal on our jar when we're fermenting it, because the pressure here, come on lid, pop back up. The pressure that we get in the lid, it will build up. We want it to build up, and that is part of how we know it's done, is when we can't pop this top. This lid is not demonstrating well for me. So we will, there it goes. We will do that. Okay, so I have my jar. I did not sterilize this jar. We are not canning. We are creating a live probiotic. The live probiotic is going to kill any bad probiotics here. This is basis of environment versus terrain, or environment or terrain theory versus germ theory. So I washed this. If you washed your jar in a dishwasher, I'd recommend rinsing it with some hot water and friction to get any kind of residual detergent off of your jar, because that will kill your ferments, and probably the bad stuff will grow, because that's what happens usually. So we are going to cut up the beets. Just for fun, I'm going to use a different one. Okay, here are my 2 beets that I got. You can definitely buy them with the greens and put your greens in a soup. That's delicious. There's a ton of magnesium in beet greens especially. I thought about it. I just threw a whole bunch of things away in my fridge because I was not able to cook them all up, so I decided to just go with what I wanted and not other things. 2 things. I'm going to wash them to get the dirt off of them. I'm not going to peel them. I'm not going to cut them. I'm not going to cook them. There's some recipes that say to cook this. That doesn't work if you are wild fermenting, which is what we're doing. So I'm just, with my fingertips and feel, these are pretty clean already, getting the dirt off. Okay, we will talk about burping. I no longer recommend burping. unless your jar is about to break. It was the way I was taught, and the deeper I've gotten into fermentation, so I taught it for a while, but the deeper I've gotten into fermentation, it's not actually a great plan. So you don't want to burp it. So problem solved. But good question. Good. Thanks for bringing that up. All right, here's my beet. It's like the size of my palm, right? So what I'm going to do is cut the beet into evenish pieces. Wow, this is much thinner than I usually go. That's okay. So doing slices about that thick, kind of cubey. Kind of like the fat, right? We're just kind of making them the same size. So no smaller than that. Absolutely no smaller than this piece right here. Okay, so then I'm just going to put them in the jar. I'll show you when I'm done how full we make it. You don't want to ever grate these or make them too small because then they will ferment. Beets are very, very sweet, right? There's a lot of sugar in beets. We get sugar from beets, actually. Fun fact, calcium lactate that standard process sells is made from beets. It's a beet extract. So there's calcium in beets. They apparently use certain beets under certain growing conditions that create very high amounts of calcium, and then they obviously extract them. But beet kvass is a good way to get calcium. Okay, that's all I'm going to do. Okay, checking on the ferments, or the rendering. We are getting quite a bit of liquid. Still pretty clear, not quite browned at all. We're just slowly letting that eke out. And the other stuff's going too. Okay, cool. Here is my jar of beets. So I'm going to do, it's less than a quarter. I really could probably put, now that I'm picking it up, I could put these in. But you don't want to overfill it with beets. Actually, I'm just going to I have one more little piece in. Because I don't know what I'm going to do with a tiny bit of beet. So I'm just going to put it in. All right, so here is my beet jar. So a quarter or less full, but a quarter is about good. And then I'm going to put salt in it. You can use different kinds of salt. The one I use the most is real salt for fermenting because it's cheap. You want to put about 3 tablespoons in. Now, a question I get all the time is my beet kvass tastes really, really salty. Is that okay? Yes, it is okay. It also often tastes less salty when you get more used to it, and you can also dilute it with some water in your glass. You want to do, when you're drinking it, you want to do, how do you drink beet kvass? You want to do 4 ounces. Start smaller, but work up to 4 ounces in the morning and potentially 4 ounces in the afternoon. On an empty stomach. This is a liver tonic, so it helps cleanse the liver. Okay, so quite a bit of salt. Quite a bit of salt. But a recipe truly actually would be 4 tablespoons. So this is actually a reduction of the true brining recipe of beet kvass, which is 4 tablespoons. It's 2 tablespoons of salt per 1 quart of water is the brining recipe for any ferments. I've found that's excessive, and we live in Colorado, so you can get away with less salt, and so I do. Okay, I'm just going to fill this to the shoulder, which is here, of the jar with filtered water. After I get some of my own filtered water, because I'm thirsty. Okay. I can see from here. Any other questions? Questions about beet kvass? So what do we do with beet kvass? So we're going to put it on the counter for 3 to 5 days until it's fermented. How do you tell if it's fermented? That's a great question. Okay, here is the shoulder of the jar. Because of the burping issue, and I don't burp anymore, I do tend to a little bit less or underfill things than I used to. So beets don't really make a lot of gas. Things like garlic do. So we want to just, be aware of that. Okay, to put the lid on, I want to make sure to clean that the lid is clean and dry, or the rim is clean and dry. Put that on, screw it on. I'm hand tightening it, not crowbar tightening, not strongman tightening it, just tight. And then I'm going to go ahead and shake this for getting the salt dissolved a bit. So I'm going to do that for a little bit here. Okay. Right now this top pops down, and it will, again, like we noticed, pop back up. There it goes. When there's pressure built up from the gas of the bacteria in this jar creating the ferment, this will pop up and stay popped. The question on burping, if you guys don't know what burping is. So burping is when this is really high pressure, you do it just a bit. It'll let the pressure out, and then you tighten it back up. That's a burping. I no longer recommend burping unless your jar, it will start bending. Your lid right here will start bending like it's going to break. If you don't do stuff then, you probably will break your jar often. So then I do recommend burping it. But if you leave enough headspace in this jar for the air and the gas, and it's not garlic, you will be fine. And even with garlic, the last garlic I made, I left plenty of headroom and I never had to burp it. The danger with burping is that you are again allowing the outside environment to come into here and potentially creating a bacteria overgrowth of something you don't really want to create a growth of. Do you see how pink it is? It's really not dark at all. But it's crazy how fast the beets do color this. I'm going to grab my beet kvass from an old batch, and I'll show you that. Oh. I apparently only have vegetable medley, but the color is about the same. So do you see how much darker? Wow. That is than that. So there is this darkening of the kvass. This is a vegetable medley, but it has beets in it, so the point's the same. You will get that. Now, you aren't going to get that right away. Now, these beets are floating. I do not put a cabbage leaf in or anything like that because the beets will sink within the next day or so. And then they'll sink to the bottom. When they sink to the bottom, you'll get a darkening of purple here that won't, and it'll be lighter up here. But as soon as you pick it up and move it, you're going to get some color change. Once it's done, it's going to be that deep, deep, rich purple. And it often actually gets a little bit thick, which is good. Those are bacteria bodies making it thick. Can you leave too much headspace? No, I don't think so. I've done half, potentially. So I've done half-made jars. And that sauerkraut does taste weird. I've only ever done it with sauerkraut. It does taste weird. Now, if it's this versus this, that's going to make no difference. So you can, in beet kvass itself, you probably, it doesn't have to be an exact thing. Let me get my garlic. Let's see. Oh, yeah. So this is how much headspace I left in my garlic. And those are fine. Oh, this is the old one. Just kidding. Like, that doesn't look great. That's a very old tempered garlic. That's like 4 or 5 years. Here is the headspace. So I left lots of headspace in there. And it turned out just great. So these turned green for a while, and now they're dark. And then this dark color is, I see that, and then after about a year, because I've had my garlic that long, my other one, it gets much lighter in color. How long do you leave beet? Let's go back to beet kvass. Okay, so we take this, we lid tight screw it. I'm going to put it on my counter for 3 to 5 days. When this top won't pop because it's full and it gets a little fizzy maybe. There also is a white layer that you can get on the top or some white sediment on the bottom. Now the real salt has some pink something in it, dirt, like rock flakes or something like that. So you'll get pink at the bottom. It's fine. It's just a mineral. Do what you want with it or not. But you'll get a little white on the top sometimes or on the bottom. Those are just good yeasts and bacteria. So white is always fine. Colored is not. Purple, green, black. orange, don't eat it. Throw your whole batch out. So 3 to 5 days on the counter, and then we put it in the fridge, and then you pour out kvass every morning, the amount that you're taking, 1 ounce to 4 ounces. Kids get 1 to 2 ounces depending on their size. You can put it in some water if it's too strong and salty and just dilute it out, or just drink it straight like a shot. Do you eat the beets after they are done, or just drink the juice? There's nothing wrong with eating the beets, but that's not the point of this ferment. This ferment is a liver tonic beverage. And so mostly you do want to just leave the beets in. Technically, I will tell you this, I do not do this because of reasons I'll tell you, but you can take those beets that you already used, and after you've drinking this down, fill it up and add maybe 2 tablespoons of salt and re-ferment the same beets twice. Can't do it more than that. And the beets get gray when all the nutrition is out of them. So once they're gray, there's nothing there. Don't eat them. Just recycle, compost them or whatever, because there's nothing there of value to you. So you can eat the beets. Some people love them and do, and totally fine. Especially if you just make 1 batch, you drink it pretty quickly, because 4 ounces a day for multiple people in your house could actually be a pretty quick batch. Eat the beets, totally fine to do. Or you could just throw them away, or potentially use them twice. But if you use them the second time, your batch is not as strong. And so they're going from a strong batch to a weak batch to a strong batch to a weak batch every other one. And I feel like that's not a great, it's a hard consistency in probiotics and liver function. If you need it, drink it, I guess. So, okay. More or less leave out of direct sunlight. I haven't noticed anything particularly crazily a problem with that. All right. The lard looks, or the tallow looks just the same as it has. I'm going to pull this out. Ooh, nice. Okay. Here is the leaf fat. So it finally started melting. And see how it's melting very different from that? You can tell there's so much more collagen and stuff in this, whereas this is melting pretty, like it's kind of just melting like butter almost. So anyway, we're just going to keep that going really slow. And now that it's kind of getting melted, I'll probably get a separate spoon for it. It's really not very hot at all. So we keep that suet as suety as possible. And then I'm going to do what they talk about in the 18th century channel. You can go look on how to make suet, which is this. So welcome to the 18th century, I guess. But they lay it in like glass baking dishes almost. I mean, they obviously use 18th century dishes, but you could do that. And then when it's cold, they pull it out and cut it into little pieces. So it's almost like, I don't know. It's very usable. So you can, it's not liquid, it's hard, right? But it's hard, and then you cut it into pieces, so then you can just measure it out or throw it in. Or the sausage recipe that I have on my website is from them mostly, and they put suet in the mixture of the sausage, and then as the suet melts, it leaves holes in the sausage that makes the sausage a lot lighter and fluffier. So it's just a really, really nice thing to cook with. So I'm excited to have rendering the beef fat, which I haven't done in a long time. I do lard much more often, and all of a sudden I have suet now. So hooray. All right, let me look at questions. Beets, garlic halfway. Garlic halfway. I don't know what that means. Can you say a little more about that? Other veggies you can't ferment? No. You can ferment anything. One of my favorite ferments I ever had was a daikon radish, grated, fermented. One of my GAPS patients did it, and it was so good. I need to find that recipe. I think about it all the time when I go and look. So you can ferment anything. There's a book. I kept it out. Well, there are 2 books. So the first basic one of fermenting is Nourishing Traditions. However, Nourishing Traditions uses whey fermentation, W-H-E-Y, whey fermentation, which looks like this. This is whey. This whey is getting a little cloudy. But this is whey. So this is that liquid runny stuff from yogurt or sour cream or kefir or whatever. So whey fermentation, it basically stacks the deck. But the problem is you're stacking the deck in a particular profile of the same yogurt that you're probably already eating. So it's better to do what's called wild fermentation, which is using only salt and then allowing whatever bacteria generally grow off of the ferments, or off of each vegetable. So this vegetable has a bacteria profile that lives on it that is healthy and helpful to the plant. That is going to be different than the beet bacteria profile, than the carrot bacteria profile, than the broccoli bacteria profile. So as we eat different ferments, we're going to get different bacteria profiles if we do it with salt only, which is called wild fermentation. This is like the Bible of fermentation. And he also has a different book called he calls Wild Fermentation, this author here, Sandor Katz. This is fun because there's so much. It's not just recipes, but it's recipes from everything from like ancient stuff, Chinese, Japanese pickles, distillation, just so many recipes. But he also talks about what is it? What's it called? Why do we do it? So all that's really, really fun. So I love reading this book. Talks about why they didn't have refrigeration. They had store food. So, okay, cool. Garlic was answered. Perfect. I will throw this one in just really quick. There is a Nourishing Traditions cookbook for children, which is great. One-page, easy recipes. I love cooking from this. This is where I make my salad dressing from because it's so helpful to have this very open, easy to read book when we're starting to make real food recipes, because a lot of us have not learned how to make real food recipes for most of our lives. All right, time to check on stuff. I don't know if we're going to get to sauerkraut because I'm happy to stay on, but I also want to finish up what's here. So let's see what our soup deliciousness is. Ooh, okay. So the smell, which you guys can't smell, obviously, is I smell carrots. And I'm also looking at the color. Don't know if you can tell in the nuance, but there is a yellowish color to this water now, which means that it started to really, it's blended. The flavors are at least beginning well to blend. This has only been cooking for about an hour, so we're not quite to as far as I want to be. But let's taste it. I did leave it on a little high heat, hopefully to get it done faster. And then you can see the fat here on the top. So chickens don't generally have a really huge amount of fat, but other soups you can get quite a bit of fat. Sorry about the lighting. Okay. So I'm just going to pour some out. Now I can tell, again, I'm looking for that yellow color. That's going to come some from the carrots, but it will also come when the chicken is there. I'm going to let it cool for a second, and then we're going to drink it and see. So when you're ready, when your meat stock is ready, it tastes like soup. Right? It doesn't taste like carrots. It doesn't taste like water with carrot water in it or onion water in it. It tastes like a soup. So we want to get it to that place. I'm going to stir here. Stir here. Oh man, this suet's getting really nice. That slow heat was worth it. I've burned fat. You just cry. It's so sad. Okay. It mostly tastes like carrots. I can tell there's chicken in there a little bit. It's not bad. I'm probably going to give it a bit of time. Maybe another 45 minutes. I really do like to go to the hour and a half mark for a couple of reasons. One, because it's not unusual for me to throw, I don't debone very carefully. I eat the skin, I eat the organs, but I don't really eat, if I throw a little bit of thigh away, for example, big chunks of muscle meat, I would rather have a little bit more time so that the stock is a little more rich because I'm not necessarily going to consider getting my nutrition is from the meat. I know you'll figure out that sentence. So that's my thought on that. Okay, I want to pour out the tallow that is rendered so we can see that, and then if people need to go, then we can go. So let's finish that one up. Okay, beet kvass. We're only getting to that one. I definitely have lots of things on sauerkraut. A lot of people have videos on sauerkraut. But I wanted to do beet kvass because that's so easy. For sauerkraut, what I do is just cut this up, mix it with some salt, put it in a jar. I know it's nice to see it, but you can do it. But the beet kvass is so easy, and it really takes 5 minutes. It's really fast, so that's great. Okay, let's do some fat pouring. Okay, so I want glass and metal for this, right? We have a fat so hot that it's liquefied out. Now that doesn't have to be a crazy hot fat. So fat at body temperature is liquid. So even if we brought this up to body temperature, this fat would be liquid, which is why it doesn't clog your arteries, by the way, because it's liquid in your body temperature. It's not coagulated fat. Okay. Just have to say. Consideration for eating skin and organs when the meat is not organic or well-sourced. Great question. They still have more nutrient-dense nutrition in them they still have more nutrient density to them than muscle meat, so it doesn't matter. Now liver, like this liver I set aside, if that doesn't look good, like liver disease is a real thing, and it happens when animals or people are not healthy and raised, eating good food or raised well. So when that happens, I'm not going to eat those organ meats, but you can see it. The liver is usually the most affected. The rest are muscle. And so then I'm just going for dense muscle. And remember that your body is working. This is a great question because it kind of goes into a deeper thought, which is your body is not a machine. It is an art. And so when you eat nutrition, fat-soluble vitamins, even if they're mixed with toxins, those fat-soluble vitamins help your body deal with the toxins. If you eat something that's just toxic, like meat, muscle meat, for example, maybe has some toxins stored or they injected some dye in like a Tyson chicken. When that happens, you are giving your body a more workload, but you didn't actually give it any more help to do the work you asked it to do. So there is a benefit to eat things like fat from a less than perfect source because it helps your body do things that it needs to do. If that makes sense. So I don't have a problem with skin at all. The skin should be just fine. Organs, again, depends on the health of what the organ looks like or the health of the animal. And again, there are chickens I won't buy because I got that chicken for $8. Like, I know you can get them for $4, but I got it for $8. Like, we're not breaking the bank. There are chickens that you can buy for $26, and when I can get them, I do because they are so much better. And that is truly the cost of raising chickens. I've raised chickens with soy-free, corn-free, small grain, fermented grain, and man, were they good. But it costs probably $30 a chicken to raise, really. I used them for eggs for a while too, so that was helpful, but it's not cheap to raise good meat. We have been completely flabbergasted. That's not the right word. Hoodwinked, maybe is the word I'm looking for, about what it looks like to raise meat, because I won't get into that, but yes, it's fine. Great question. It would be good. My fat is melting slower. What heat should I have it at? So I have it at a heat. This is my heat that I have it at, if you know gas and can translate. So the one in front is the fat. So it's not a problem to go slower, but because you don't want to burn. But you don't want to. There's no problem to go slower. It just takes you more time. But what you don't want to do is burn it. So if it's going slower, it's just because of that. So you could turn it up a little bit. I do keep it fairly low. Man, that leaf lard is just rendering like a dream now. Okay, so I'm going to obviously do them different. Here's what I have. So I have a clean half quart quart mason jar. You could do a half quart, depending on how much fat you're doing. You could also do a bigger thing. So for this one, this is for the normal tallow. And so I'm going to put it in a jar like I do the lard. For the leaf fat, I'm going to put it out on a dish so I can cut it up. That's exciting. Talking too long. Okay. So here is what I'm going to do. Is this safer with a friend? Okay. Oh, this is metal. I forgot to show you. So I got this at Ace Hardware. I'm super excited. This part is plastic, not my favorite, but I'm just going to be careful to pour as much as I can here. I did pour this with a really flimsy plastic mesh, and it melted. I don't know why I didn't think of that, but, you know, don't be like me. Learn from my mistakes. Okay. What am I going to do? I'm going to, oh, you can't see. So there's liquid in here I'm going to pour off, but I'm going to kind of try to get the pieces to come down or even use my spoon a bit so that they're not falling and splashing me as I'm pouring. Okay? Please be careful with this. Now, if you have healthy fat-protected skin, it doesn't burn as easily, and that is great. All right, let's see if I can give you an angle here. There we go. Okay, so I got my setup here. I'm going to very carefully pour my fat. So this is catching any little fat bits. Now, you can do this as you go like I am, or you can wait until the end. I tend to do this sometimes because if you accidentally burn it, at least you didn't burn all of it. However, you don't have to. Okay, so I'm just going to pour a decent amount here. I'm watching that these pieces, some of the pieces are wanting to fall, but I'm just going nice and steady, nothing dangerous, just nice and careful. This one's nice. It fits right in the jar. It's the first time I've used this. I just bought it for my birthday last month. Okay. You know you love food when you buy yourself birthday presents that are wire mesh strainers. All right, now I'm going to rebalance this all on the bottom so that it's covering so we don't have some pieces sticking and we start getting that fat rendering again so that it is there. Okay, so here's what we were left with. Now, as you can see, there's floaters in here. Let's see if I can get it to focus. Don't focus on me, focus on this. You guys see? It's kind of glary. There are definitely floaters in here. So you can strain this through cheesecloth to get even more of those big pieces because I only got these pieces out. It's not very many. There are a lot of very smaller pieces to go in. They will settle to the bottom. So if you look at my lard, actually this one's pretty clean. You can see there's some particles. You probably can't see that. There's some particles of pieces of something on the bottom of this. Sometimes that's pretty brown, and it's fine because you use it fast. Now, tallow I don't use as fast, so I'm considering if I want to restrain it through some cheesecloth. I may do that later. It's a lot of jar washing of fatty jars, but it's okay. So I probably will restrain it through cheesecloth to catch even more of those because the cleaner a fat is, the longer it will keep. If your fat has pieces of things in it, it's not a pure fat. Fat cannot rot, but things in it can. So yeah, that will be interesting. I just don't go through tallow as fast as I do lard. So I probably will strain that depending on how much. If I only get half a jar of this, then I won't. But I bet I'll get almost a quart from that fat amount that I had. All right, leaf fat. I'm going to pour it out just so you can see the color difference because it's totally different, which is so cool. Okay, let's get I've got this little square flat dish, so we'll just put the amount in here that we want, and then I'll pop this out. I'll, dip it in hot water, get it warm once it's dried, once it's cooled all the way, and then just pop it out and cut it. So that'll be a nice shape to cut. Okay, so same thing I'm gonna do here. I'm gonna rinse my thing first. Okay, I'm just setting it in here, and then I'll kind of pick it up once I get this going. But I'm actually going to use the spoon to hold it back and pour it in. Spread it again evenly on the bottom. Low heat, even spread are important. Okay. This one I'm definitely going to go through a cheesecloth. I think they have another dish this size. But do you see the difference in color? Hugely different type of fat. And then the smell. This one has more of a smell. You can smell beef in this one. This one smells like almost nothing. It smells like, yeah, like I can barely get the hint of beef, but it really smells like almost nothing. You can put the tallow, Tallow, may have just mistyped it, but tallow, you can leave it on the counter. It'll cool to room temperature on the counter. That's better for the food in your fridge. It's good to not put hot things in your fridge because it raises the temperature of your fridge. Or you could leave it on the counter for a while and put it in the fridge. I always cool my fat to room temperature like overnight before I then put it in the fridge. The tallow I will definitely keep in the fridge. However, you don't have to. You could leave this, if this is solid and you haven't accessed it. So we've got, let's say we have really hot tallow. I put the lid on it, either a plastic lid or a metal lid. Either a plastic kind of one or a metal one. This is going to seal a little bit better. Seal that puppy up and leave it. It's going to be good for probably a year. Fat, again, pure fat. When I run this through a cheesecloth, I would do it for you, but I don't know where my cheesecloth is, so I'm not going to waste that time. But that's it. It keeps. The thing that makes it not keep is when you put a spoon in that was touching other things, or bacteria introduction into this. But again, that lard has been out for 2 weeks. It's nicer to use. It's softer. I remember to use it because it's out. I'll put some in with my butter. I like the taste of butter a lot, but I'll put some lard in there with my butter to extend my butter because that's cheaper. It's way cheaper to eat lard. So anyway, there we go. But yeah, I'll let this cool and then we'll see how hard it is. It may be hard enough at room temperature to cut into pieces, but if it's still too mushy, I want it to be hard. And so I will put it in the fridge to harden it the rest of the way before I cut it into little pieces. And maybe I'll post on social media, probably, if I remember, a picture of what the suet looks like. Cool. All right. Let me talk through what I will do with my meat stock when we're done. And then if you guys have more questions, I'm happy to ask. I'm happy to hang out with you. Just want to finish up if people only planned an hour and a half to do stuff. I don't know what your Saturday looks like. I have to finish this up, so I'll be here. I can stay on camera. If you want to leave, just leave. And when there's 0 people, I'll just stop being here. So that works. Okay. So what I'm going to do with my stock when I'm done, I'm going to pull the chicken out onto a plate, probably that plate, and let it cool a bit so that it's more handleable. And then I will decide what I'm going to do with it. So if I want it as stock that I'm going to use as a base, right, an ingredient for other recipes, then I will pour it into a half-gallon jar or quart jars, which is what I have right now, and let it cool that way. So I'll strain it through probably my wire strainer because it's hot, right? I'll pour it through that, get the major pieces out, so I just have stock liquid and then not, right? So then with the meat that I've pulled out, I'm going to do what's called debone it with my fingers. So I'm going to pull all the bones out and put them in a pile. And you have a tiny little pile of bones and a large pile of meat and other muscle connective tissue brown stuff, right? Stuff that you wouldn't necessarily identify as meat until you met me maybe, or until you started natural food cooking. So skin is going to be in there. Thank you. Glad you enjoyed it. We can do more of these. All right. I will say quickly, as people maybe are ready to leave, you probably saw when you signed up or saw about the class, we're teaching for free, but there is a donate button on our website on the events. Any of those donate buttons go to any class. It's just one web page. So if you want to help us just keep teaching, it's kind of like a Patreon, but instead of Patreon taking some of the profits, it just all comes to us so we can keep teaching. So feel free to or not to, but appreciate it if you do. Okay, glad to have everyone here if you guys are taking off. Okay, so meat stock, we're going to separate that out, debone the chicken. The bones, what can you do with the bones? You can throw them away because there's not very much. You can open them up and make sure the marrow are out of things like the thigh bone. That's an extra bonus. Or you can put them in a Ziploc gallon bag and freeze them. Wait till they're cool. Freeze them and add to them until you have a whole bag, and then eventually you make bone broth with those. Not legal on intro diet of GAPS, but if your gut is sealed, it's a great, great food. So totally fine to do. And then you actually can what's called roll. You can roll those bones twice, which is really nice for the budget, right? You don't have to buy any special bones for making meat stock. You just take your chicken bones that you've been saving. Maybe you buy a chicken breast for $1.50 a pound, $2 a pound, and then you throw those together and make some meat stock, right? Or bone broth. So that's a great way to do it. For me, I don't love bone broth, so I just throw my bones away. I debone them. I eat the heart. I'll eat pieces of the skin that I feel like eating right then. It just is an opportunity for me to feed and nourish my body. So I'm listening to what it wants. And then I will do what I want with the rest of the little pieces. So I will break the skin up so they're in little pieces and kind of meat-like instead of a long piece of soggy. It's soggy when you do soup, right? Soggy skin. You could also fry those up if you're not on stage 1 through 3 of GAPS. You could fry your skin up in some fat. Use your animal fat here. Use some lard or some tallow and fry your skins up and eat them fried. Totally great too. So that can be really fun. Or just break them up. Or if it's really gross or people in your family are really grossed out, you can put all the skin back into the liquid and immersion blend it to get a just thicker stock. It will foam a little bit when you do that. Just fair warning. It's totally fine. It will unfoam, but it can kind of freak you out. It freaked me out the first time I did it. So you can blend that. You can blend the organ meats. The liver, let me see if the liver is probably done enough. We were just talking about this with someone the other day. Oh, I don't have a liver in here. Never mind. The liver is pretty crumbly usually. So that I often just with my fingers will crumble up and just let it be in the stock so that I'm getting a little bit of the nutrition from the liver over time as opposed to having to, make a pate or eat a piece of liver. And again, great if people aren't loving liver, you can use it, hide it in there. You can put the skin and the organs, heart, and, well, the heart never gets anywhere except my mouth. If I love you deeply, I will give you a heart. So feel very loved if I ever give you a heart when I'm cooking chicken. And then the gizzard, actually, I often just eat as well. It's just about as favorite as a heart for me. But you could also cut that up a little bit because it's a harder piece of meat. But if you cut it up, no one's going to really notice it, even your pickiest eaters, if it's just in a soup somewhere, as long as you've made it small enough. So tricks for that, same with the heart. It's just a muscle meat. If you cut it small enough, no one will even notice. And then you go to the liver. I usually crumble. The skin, I will either eat as pieces of meat, kind of pull it apart into little pieces or cut it up, and then, or you can blend it into the stock. And then the meat, you can break up into pieces or you set aside. Sometimes I will pull it out and put it with sour cream and make a chicken salad with it. So that's a really great way to do it. You could reheat that. Sometimes I'll put that with curry spices and some peas, for example, and fry that up. So anything like that you can do with that meat, or you can put it back in your soup and use it as the meat for your soup. Then you can add fresh vegetables if you want to. You could add zucchini or winter squashes or whatever, and really get a lot of nutrition from, get a whole new soup with fresh flavors. And then I often will cut up the pieces of that chicken breast that I kept out, right? And then put them in the soup fresh. So this soup really would hold those chicken breasts, and then we boil them there, or you could, if you're on later stages of GAPS or not on GAPS, you could fry them up in a little bit of butter and gives them some flavor right before you put them in the soup. You can do that. Okay, I think we're getting close to 10 minutes away, so I'm going to turn the heat up just a touch. And then I'm going to put my parsley in. So I'm just going to put the whole thing in just like this. There's a lot of potassium and vitamin C in parsley. I don't know how much of the vitamin C survives the cooking again, but potassium's good. So I'm just rinsing it. I buy organic vegetables pretty much exclusively. That's not 100% true. There are things on the Clean 15 list, like avocados, that I will buy either or. But when you are getting stuff for your healing soup, if you can at all possible, afford the organic parsley and the organic carrots. Onions actually are on the Clean 15, so those aren't such a big deal if you need to save some money. But truly, the difference in price between onions, organic and not, is pretty insignificant. Okay. So I turned up the heat for a couple of reasons. One, because I just put something cold in it. It's the main reason. And two, because I want it to cook. I'm going to take the lid off and cook it. So I just put that in, and I'm just kind of pushing it down. I'm not doing a lot of spreading. I don't really care. The other, that was the lard spoon. The other reason too, which is fine for the soup, but not for the lard. Tallow. Sorry, I make lard way more. The other reason I don't put the parsley in until later is because there is, it's a very strong flavor, so you may not be able to find if that chicken flavor is coming out yet. But I'm going off of time also. Okay, I'm going to turn that up a bit. Put the lid back on. Hopefully the hose won't turn, the fan won't turn back on. All right, other questions, other cooking techniques while I'm in my kitchen that you want me to do? I can do sauerkraut if you really want me to, although that's going to take a bit of time for the salt to sit, but we can start it at least. I could show you how to make a pate. Do you want me to do that with my liver that I pulled out? That just takes a few minutes. Seeing none opposed, I'm going to do that. Okay. Small pan. We're going to fill it with water. We're going to bring the water to a boil. I only need to fill the pan enough so that my liver will be covered by it, and I'm going to bring it to a boil before I add the liver. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on here. Oh, this burner's too big for this. Hold on. Let me switch. All right. Bring that to a boil. Okay. Perfect. You guys are troopers, just hanging out with me in my kitchen. Okay. Bye. Thanks so much. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. You guys let me know. Is there other things you want me to teach in my kitchen? I'm happy to do that. This word, I wasn't going to promise that till I know how this went well, but if you guys feel like it was helpful and it wasn't too annoying to have me pull my computer around, it was very easy for me. I enjoyed it, so I'm happy to teach more. So you can chat here or leave a comment later or send an email or whatever. Let me know what you want me to teach about. I'm happy to do another one. But also this will save, so you'll be able to watch this again later if you want to, or share it with friends. Please share it with friends. And yeah. Now, apple cider vinegar liver while the pot comes to boil. If I were using beef liver, I would. I'm going to use this chicken liver because that's what I have. And I do not do apple cider vinegar in the chicken liver because it's mild enough for me. So I don't worry anything about that. But yeah, if it were beef liver, that would be a great time to do it, that 10 or 15 minutes, or even before that a little bit. You are probably the cooking other things than chicken liver expert because I've only done it a couple of times. Because I will do liver, I'll do big liver and other things, but I've not done it with a pate maybe once. So, sorry. All right. My fan turned on. Which you guys said is fine. Oh, we're boiling now. not the pate water. Okay, so how I'm going to do a pate, so easy. Oh, let me get my stuff. Hold on. I told you I just moved here, right? I don't know where that. I don't know where my thing is. Let's come look under here. I have all sorts of baskets of things. I'm sharing a house, so I don't have all the room, so I have some things in random places. So what I'm looking for is how I do this is with a food processor, and then the motor to my food processor is my immersion blender, which also seems to be absent from where it should be. So that I'm a little confused about. A little bit confused. All right, well, we may have to ditch this idea. We may have to ditch this idea and come back to that next time. Let's do it next time. Okay. I am going to, let's finish this chicken soup because we're getting close to 10 minutes here. Sorry about the promise for pate. Maybe I'll boil it for you so you can at least see the texture. But I'll have to find my food processor. I don't know where it is. Might be in an unopened box still. Okay. Gonna try some soup, see how it's tasting. You can smell that parsley, it's so nice. So you can see that yellow color, it's a little bit green now. It needs more time. Okay, I'm not gonna rush it. We're just gonna be done for the day. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. This was really fun. I'm hoping I actually have a cord, hopefully for next time, to plug in my camera. I have a new video-ish camera, so plug that in and be able to kind of have adjustments or a little bit of a better picture quality. Potentially have someone here with me filming this, or also just filming other cooking things. So I'm going to try to get some different cooking technique videos up on YouTube. We are going to move to quite a bit of education on YouTube. So if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. It's fun. Liking the video helps it show up for people's feeds, so I appreciate that. If you like it and you want to. No one's making you, but thanks so much for cooking with me today. It's really fun to have you in my kitchen, and I'm excited to enjoy my delicious food that is now going to be made because you were with me today. So any questions or further questions you can leave in the comments below once this goes live in a few minutes, or post on for a few minutes. And so lovely to have you all here. Have a great Saturday.